Welcome, everybody. I see that people are starting to filter in, which is great. We're session 5, I think, of the day. So busy day. Afternoon here in Vancouver. Kate, what time is it for you?
7 p.m. I'm like on the whole opposite coast.
You are right at the end of your day. So
Yeah.
you have beverage options for during this session. It's after 5 p.m. And I think this is going to be a really good one. I'm super excited about our conversation that we had a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
And I know people are really going to enjoy hearing from you both here live. And then also I know that a lot of our attendees, we have, I think 4,000 registrants are planning on watching things remotely. So hi to you who are here live and also to those of you that will be watching remotely. We're excited or after the fact. So a little bit of housekeeping for everybody. You can see it on the screen here, hopefully, but make sure if you're new, you can open your little chat button at the bottom. And then to the right, you'll see a 2 with a little blue bar, and the blue bar, I think, defaults to hosts and panelists. But if you want to switch it to everyone, then everybody can be part of the conversation. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. If you have been to other sessions, you'll have experienced that, but it's nice to know where you are and what your role is and your discipline. So thanks, Kirk. So just remember to flip your 2 to say everyone from hosts and panelists. That's awesome. Hi, Rachel from the UK. Oh my goodness, 11 p.m. I think you win.
Yeah.
Hi, Julie. Nice to see you. Okay, awesome. And so we're going to do this is a little bit of, it's almost like a podcast style, although also with video, but we're going to be asking questions, and Kate's going to be sharing some of her great experience. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat and I will just bring them into the conversation. So you can listen as well as ask your questions. So feel free to use the chat for that. I'll be watching that as I talk to Kate. And Kate.
And I'll try not to get distracted by the chat.
I know, you can close it if you want, or you can keep it open. So totally your call. One of the things I love about your story is that you are, your full focus is on running a successful practice in the operational side. Like that is your focus and what you do. So I know that you were going to spend a second introducing yourself. Oh, and I'm Allie, co-founder. I always forget. I'm co-founder and co-CEO of Jane. I also opened a multidisciplinary healthcare practice myself and ran clinic for many years, although no longer, now just working, helping other clinics with Jane. So really enjoying that. And Kate, do you want to share a little bit about your story to start us off?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you're very right. I have kind of a diverse background, but I've always been in the business world, probably like how many of you nerd out over like clinical stuff. I kind of nerd out over the business stuff. Like I studied finance and small business strategy at McGill University in Canada, but I have really spent the last like 11 years being an entrepreneur. I've built 6 different businesses in that time, both in and out of the wellness industry. So like over that time, of course, I've had highs, lows, made tons of mistakes, but really I've gotten to spend a decade learning what works really well for building like genuine, sustainable businesses. And so now I run actually 2 businesses.
Yeah.
I run a sports therapy clinic with my chiropractor husband here in Nova Scotia. And then also for the last 4.5 years, I've been coaching other health and wellness practitioners to build their own fully booked practices and really start to build kind of self-sustaining businesses so that once you get booked, you can actually stay booked without kind of this constant like marketing hustle that we see a lot in the industry, which is why I'm very excited about today's conversation, because operations and the things that happen behind the scenes, like they have a lot to do with this kind of growth.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. I feel like a lot of advice that's given to clinics about marketing just requires like just forever effort. And so it feels overwhelming right from the outset.
Yeah. We'll chat a little bit about that, I'm sure, because I love the idea that, like, sure, you're going to do some marketing, but with eventually the intention that you can do less and less over time. That's how I think, you're building a good business, is you can actually like take your foot off the marketing gas, eventually.
Yeah, totally. I agree. So, I mean, to start, do you want to give us a little definition of just sort of what you mean when you say operations? Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
Yeah. Cause I feel like not a lot of people think about their operations or know it. So just kind of like a general definition, how I kind of think of it is operations are basically your day-to-day tasks, right? All the things that go into running and maintaining your business, like day in, day out. So it's things like, admin and emails, your processes, your systems, your treatment plans, even working with your patients and clients. And it's not just, these kind of operational tasks, but it's also how smoothly and efficiently are you doing those things. And, I think like from my experience, operations is kind of like the ugly stepsister to like the more flashy marketing and sales. Like it often gets overlooked. And like, I know when I was running basically my first 4 businesses, it took me a long time to figure this out. I wasn't even thinking that operations was like something you could take control of. Like I wasn't even considering it. And so I always felt really disorganized. Like I was basically like just keeping up, right? Like just getting through the days and very reactive. An email would come in, I would respond to it. Something would happen with a client, I would respond to it, right? I don't know, maybe I need to pull this chat up because I want to see, like, does anyone feel like they're running their practice like that right now? Very reactive kind of, because like I said, it took me a long time, like burnout, overworked, being super stressed, health issues coming along with it, for me to then realize how important it was. So now actually in my current 2 businesses, I have really prioritized operations to kind of like turn them into pretty well-oiled machines. So yeah, I work less and it's easier, but I think the really exciting thing is these 2 businesses that we have now have actually grown like dramatically faster, like years faster than the first 4. And I think having good operations has been a really big part of that growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you see practices getting to sort of this really sustainable like place that doesn't require as much effort?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's like a few things to kind of touch on here about growth and kind of how operations fits into it, because, I hear from a lot of practitioners, right? I'm talking to them every day, and it seems like we have a few things in common where you want to get to that place where you're not constantly marketing yourself, right? You want it to have this like self-sustaining practice that maybe you heard about when you were in school, where people just like are coming to you. There's a natural flow. You're not always worrying, like, I need to get more people through the door. I know that's what we wanted for our practice, and I was very intentional to do it. Like, it's very achievable, but the thing is, to get to that place, one, you can't be reactive, right? You can't just be waiting because you're going to wait years. But the second piece is you also cannot just focus on marketing, right? You've got to be doing some behind the scenes pieces, and I can kind of talk about some of that. But if you put all your eggs in the marketing basket, you're always going to have to rely on marketing. And it's a really exhausting place to be, like you said, right? It's just constantly keeping up. So I find getting to that place that's really consistent, that's really sustainable, I like to leverage what I call the snowball effect. And I don't know if you want me to explain that, but
yeah, sure.
This is how I really see operations tying into creating this self-sustaining machine. So, you've probably heard before, like when things snowball, they start slowly, they build until they're kind of taking on a life of their own. And that's how we want to be building a practice. And so it kind of starts with marketing. You use that to build momentum, and, you get yourself out there on social or do an ad or whatever. And
Well, I was going to say we should we could start at that marketing piece too, if you wanted. I feel like marketing is a place, whenever there's marketing in the title of a webinar, people are like, I have no idea what to do. And I would like to come to this marketing webinar. And I feel like it's a place that is kind of the most opaque for people. So I love that your snowball effect does start at the marketing stage.
Yeah.
And maybe you could share some of those things that you do or you have done in your other businesses, or you did to just start that effect even.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because, like, the reality is you've got to do some marketing, right? You've got to get yourself out there. And so I always think that marketing is what is going to get that momentum, right? It's going to get things going for you. And so, I mean, we did a wide variety of things when we started, both paid and unpaid. But I think what you want to do as much as possible is get your name out there in your local community, especially if you're brick and mortar, right? Even more so if you're brick and mortar, you want to focus as locally as possible. So that can look different, right? Depending on your neighborhood, but like, don't be afraid to invest a little money even in advertising in really, really local publications or really, really local radio stations. It's often cheaper and you can get your name out there. And so that's what we did. You don't have to pay, right? But to focus locally is going to help you because those are the actual people who are going to come into your practice. So social media is great too, but use local hashtags or tag and collaborate with other local businesses so that it's actually people who could work with you.
Right.
Seeing you. So, that's there's many ideas and many options, but I think starting local and seeing where are your people hanging out locally and how can I get myself in front of them either for free or investing in a little bit of marketing.
I like that. I feel like often the social advice is just like as many likes as you can, as many shares as you can. But I'm like, that doesn't matter if they're not people that are going to actually be able to use the services. So really thinking quite localized. And I don't know if I've ever actually called a radio station and been like, how do I advertise on your station? I kind of feel like that'd be an interesting experiment to even like learn how that works.
Yeah, but it's very overlooked, I think, but
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, super helpful. And I actually I have a masterclass where I break down really exactly what we did, exactly what we spent. And we had I can't even remember, but a multiple return on our investment with radio ads. And it's also just a great way. I'm a little bit of a lazy marketer, so I like to pay or have other people kind of do it for me. But the nice thing is you can create one piece of content, essentially one ad, and put it out there to many people versus where social media, you have to create lots of content and it usually gets out to the same number of people, right? It's the same people
same
over
audience.
and over.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like it reminds me of when we started in the software world. I'd never really heard of the whole sales funnel. I'm sure you're more familiar with it coming from the business space than I am, but the awareness and then consideration, there's steps that people go through when they're deciding on making a decision. And it's also when they're looking for a healthcare provider. And so that when you're first starting your practice, you're not just awareness step. I just need people to know about me. That's the initial part of that snowball.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You need to get your name out there so people know who you are before they can even then go in and book with you. Right. So, sometimes people are like, you really hate on marketing a lot, but I really don't. It's a necessary part of what you do. I like to grow businesses as efficiently as possible, use your time as efficiently as possible. And so that means making smart choices about the marketing, but then, like I said, leveraging some of these back end pieces so that you can start to snowball.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the next step of the snowball? Because at some point you're like, okay, people know who I am. So I guess you still do radio ads?
No, we don't do, the only thing we still do actually is Google ads because it costs us under $100 a month and we do nothing. So we just kind of keep it going, but we do no marketing anymore because this is snowball. This is our practice. We have a self-sustaining machine now and we don't have to worry about it. And I want this for every single other practitioner because then you can really focus on what you are best at and what you really came here to do, right?
So the next step of the snowball. So I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. I love the conversation. So I think I'll say this first, it starts with marketing. You get yourself out there, you get a client. What often happens, what we have a tendency to do, because everybody's talking like marketing, 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 you get so focused on, okay, I got to get more people through the door. So you just go back and do more marketing, more marketing, more marketing, and you get more clients and you're busy, but you're actually not moving forward. Like you're not growing. You're kind of just staying in the same place. So instead, to start to leverage the snowball effect, what you want to do is you start with the marketing, you get a client, but then you want to put some simple kind of behind the scenes systems in place. So the good operations to start to prioritize retention and referrals. So let's say in this example, you get the one client from the marketing, you with intention, with systems, turn that one booking into 5 rebookings, and then maybe 2 referrals down the road. Now, each of those 2 referrals becomes 5 rebookings each, and maybe a review or referral down the road. And it just continues, right? It starts to compound, it starts to snowball. So eventually, again, you have this self-sustaining machine. It's not relying on constant marketing. In fact, it actually should rely less and less on marketing over time. Is this all making sense for everyone? Usually I have like a little diagram to show this, but I would love to know like if this is how you guys all want to run your practice. I don't know if they'll see it in the chat or not, but did that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think we jokingly have been like everyone became familiar with the term R factor during the pandemic. It's basically like infecting people with joy and happiness of your service. But it's like one person tells 2 people, and that really creates this sort of like exponential growth. So it doesn't, you don't have to keep working as hard to get those initial people, because those initial people now become the ones that bring in your clients and your patients for you.
Yeah, you start to build like a little army. But I think also with that is then you can be a little bit more behind the scenes. But like I was saying, it can't be reactive. I think a lot of times people are like, that's the type of practice I want, but I'm just going to wait for the word of mouth to build my practice. But it takes a long time. So we want to, again, kind of put in simple, like daily, weekly habits on the back end that are really just, I think, good business practice to actually be like proactive about these things.
Yeah. So this is the full meat of like your heart right here is about what we're about to get.
Yeah. You can tell, right? Like
I know you want to get there, but I'm like, people also need to know about the marketing part. But the next part is like, okay, so now I have the person, and how do I create that next stage, that snowball effect where that person is now becoming not only like a integral part of my practice, but now referring on. And you have some like really great and just easy to implement suggestions on this. So let's start with like, what's the first step of getting your operations in order? Do you think your very first step?
Yeah. So this kind of comes before like the tips, but it's so important. And that is getting a structured weekly schedule for yourself, right? This is what's going to allow you to really like take control of your day-to-day operations and know what you need to be doing. So you're spending your time on the right things and when you're going to do them so that you actually can like stick with it and be consistent. Again, I don't know. Do we want to kind of break down how they can create this schedule?
I think so. I feel like now that I feel people would be upset if we didn't continue with that. Yes,
yeah,
I think
I love to do the really like actionable tactical stuff. Okay, cool. So you guys might want to, you folks might want to take like a pen and paper or something and write some of this stuff down, because I would love if any of you came to me after and be like, Kate, I've made myself a schedule and it's amazing, because I always hear from my clients that afterwards, they just feel so much more in control of their time. So I think there's a bit of a tendency to like with your patient and client, like availability time to be kind of open as much as possible, right? Like more opportunity for bookings. So you're just like open all the time. And then you kind of hope that you'll be able to fill in the gaps with like the business stuff. But I don't know. I used to be like that. It doesn't just happen, right? If you don't make the time for things, the time won't present itself. Like we will somehow just fill it. We'll get on social scrolling, we'll check our emails. So you really do, like I said, want to be intentional to batch and block your schedule. And there's kind of two pieces to it, right? There's your patient and client availability, and then there's all the business tasks. So when we first look at the patient and client availability time, what I suggest you do is first determine what is your fully booked number every week. So how many appointments do you want to be seeing to either hit your income goal, or what's just going to feel really good for you? So, let's just say in this example, that's like 20. I want to have 20 bookings a week. You want to determine approximately how long is that going to take, with buffer time and cleaning and that kind of thing. So you might figure out, okay, approximately to do 20 appointments a week, it'll take me 30-ish hours. You want 30 hours of availability for clients and patients, no more. You do not need more time for them to book in than you want to fill your schedule, because then it's going to just leave you less opportunity to do some of these back end pieces, right? To be intentional. And actually, if any of you right now are less than 50% booked and you're just getting started, I would take your availability down even more, right? The less booked you appear, right? So the more busy you appear, the more people are going to want to book with you, and just the more efficient use of your time. And actually, Jane has a feature to also make you look busy.
The intent of that, yeah. Nobody wants to put an empty schedule. You pretty much just keep looking for someone else. You're like, ooh, I don't think anyone wants to see this person.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't need, you don't need more availability than you're seeing, because it's so easy to expand your hours. Like no one's going to even really notice. So start there, figure out what that time is for your patient and client availability, block that in your schedule, and then you can start to look at all the business tasks. So here is where it might take you, 15, 30 minutes, something like that, maybe even an hour, but you basically want to brain dump all of the tasks that you do in your week outside of seeing your patients and clients. So this can be everything from, creating social content to notes, to admin, to billing, to all these things. I like to then, if you really want to get into it, kind of break down what are the steps involved for each task. So let's talk about, social media content. You might say, okay, every month I want to create a calendar. Then every week I'm going to create the content, record the video or the reel, schedule it all out. And then every single day I'm going to, jump onto my stories and spend like 10 or 15 minutes engaging. Those are the steps for your social media strategy. So, you want to write all this out, list it all out. I like to just write beside it, is it daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly? And then you start organizing it into categories. So the daily stuff together, the weekly stuff, the monthly stuff, the quarterly stuff, and then look for sort of the common tasks, right? So you want to keep yourself as much as possible in the same brain space. So you're not jumping from checking an email to seeing your clients to writing a creative email or something like that, or content. It's too hard. You're going to exhaust yourself. So you can batch together, let's say, all your creative, you're writing a blog post or an email, or your social content, all happens at one time. All your emails and checking your platforms and all that kind of thing that can take you down a spiral, that all happens at one batched time, and then you can turn it off, right? So you've got these batches of categories of tasks, and then you simply block them into your schedule, like actually put them in just like you did your availability for your clients, so that basically at any given time, you can check your schedule and here's what I need to be doing. So again, you're not reacting to just what comes up, right? You can be more intentional. And I think someone just said, keyword intentional. Yeah.
Oh, it feels like people like clinical, like practitioners just feel like providing service is my job. And so, and then everything just fits in around that. But if your schedule is open, like you said, without the intention, you just feel like you never have time to do anything. But even though you're only treating a certain amount of time, if you block it this way, it just could feel so different. I did want to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to jump back to the time that you schedule. Say you want 30 patients or clients a week, and then you only schedule that amount of time. We talked about this briefly before, but I think it's good to note that if you schedule all of that on a single day, you're going to have trouble booking people because that availability might not work for everybody. So even though you want to limit your booking hours, it's important to be intentional about providing enough options that people will be able to book in at a time for them too. Yeah. So you can play around with where those spots live. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we had also chatted about, if you're someone who realistically might see someone a couple times a week, let's say you're an acupuncturist or a chiropractor, and you're only available like Monday, Tuesdays, it's going to be really hard to deliver a really quality treatment plan because someone might need, more like Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, or something like that. So you've got to think about your practice a little bit, your clientele, when they need to come in, and put it together in a way that's going to make sense. But yeah, you definitely do not want to be open all the time.
Very true. Okay, awesome. And so I think where you're just going with, so that's this, is anything more to say about the schedule of the week, or?
I think start there. Like when I work with my clients, we go pretty deep into it, but I think you can, if you start to batch your time, and the biggest thing is, I think, blocking it in. I find it's really important to actually see it in your schedule and not just think like, oh yeah, Mondays I'm going to do this, but like see it in there, because I don't know, when things are written down, we're more likely to do it, right? And I think we need to prioritize these back end pieces as much as we do our patient and client time, right? Like you said, I used to have people say like, oh, my job is to do this XYZ modality, or my job is to just see my patients and clients. Well, I actually think your job is to get people the results that they're coming into you for and help them maintain them and support them with their health. And that job description involves a lot more than just your one modality or the things you do within your appointment, right? It's more comprehensive than that.
Yeah, it's a bit of an expansion of mindset as well, to be like, these are income generating tasks. It's just that the income comes a little later. And so I think people feel like, oh, but if I'm not treating people, I'm not earning anything. But it's just a little, it's like not being reactive, and it's putting the time in to create income generating treatments further down the line. I like that.
Yeah, 100%. Although there are things that can combine both.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, unless you had another question.
Oh, I was going to just go to just other secrets for using operations to support growth.
Yeah, let's chat about that. It kind of falls in because, like I said, we've been talking a lot about being proactive about retention and referrals. So let's look at retention, which is really easy to add into your daily operations. Like actually the easiest, most impactful strategy for retention and just bookings in general for most practices that I've analyzed is getting really, really good at delivering treatment plans and rebooking people in clinic, like in their appointment, which actually requires like no additional effort outside of your time, right? And it's generally going to be the largest contributor to your overall bookings. Like actually in advance of this, I just ran our numbers, and 55% of all the bookings that we see in our schedule in any given week is from Darcy, my husband, rebooking people at the end of their appointments for their next ones. And there's zero time involved in that, right? So for all of you right now, look at like, how are you rebooking people? How often are you rebooking them at the end? And, maybe you're doing a few in advance or something like that. But if it's less than 50, 60% of the time, this is where you really want to be focusing your attention, is get really comfortable with the scripts and the communication involved in delivering these quality treatment plans, and recommending rebooking as necessary, right? Not just for the sake of it, but it's a massive contributor to bookings. Zero extra effort. But then we can go even one step further with the retention system, start to actually build a process for yourself where you then follow up. So, anyone who didn't rebook in clinic, because not everybody, everyone's going to, and that's totally fine. Then you say, okay, I'm going to follow up with them. If anyone here follows me a little bit, I'm obsessed with following up because it's so simple. People will thank you. No one will think you're annoying. And you're just going to start to create more loyal clients who adhere to their treatments and they'll rebook. So this might be a task that you want to be blocking into your schedule every week, where you say, we do ours on Mondays. I think it works really well where you say, okay, those people who didn't rebook from last week, I'm going to follow up with them on Monday. Or people you said you were going to follow up with, right? Maybe they were confused about something or not super comfortable with an exercise. And you say, okay, I'll check in with you next week. You do it on Monday. And so right there, you've created a retention system for yourself, right? You're going to deliver your treatment plan, rebook in clinic. Those who don't rebook on Monday, you're going to follow up, check in with them. And then you could even take it a step further and say, okay, those who haven't been in 3 months or whatever makes sense for your practice, there's going to be an automated email they receive or some sort of reinvigoration strategy. So you're creating kind of a standardized process for yourself, and you can fill it into your schedule wherever those tasks are needed.
Yeah. And that's a good example of one of those, I guess, weekly tasks that you were mentioning you would block in. And I think whether you're administrative staff or whether you're a practitioner that does your own rebooking, you can and it probably only takes half an hour to an hour, depending on how many people did not rebook the week before. And to just have it in there, you're just going to remember to do it every single week. Yeah.
That I like to have a section. I don't call it proactive emails, but this is kind of what it is. It's all the emails that you're not just responding to what's in your inbox. You're actually saying, okay, I'm going in, I'm going to follow up with leads or like inquiries. I'm going to follow up with people. And then also another task I like to add into here is referrals, right? Asking for referrals or reviews. It's a very simple system again, right? You can either ask in clinic, so no additional work, or you can add it on to some of these other emails that you do where, anyone who had a great outcome last week or has been in a number of times, you send out an email asking them for a referral or review. This is how you start to leverage the snowball effect, right? You're not waiting for it to happen.
Right.
You are making it happen. And I think actually providing a much higher quality of care when you do.
Yeah, that's interesting. I used to feel really uncomfortable asking for reviews. Like I felt awkward about it. And then I realized how frequently I'll be like really enjoying a podcast or something that I'll actually be getting real value from. And someone will say, if you're getting value from this, like we'd love a like and a whatever. And I'd be like, oh, I wouldn't have really thought about it. But now that you're saying that, and it never bothered me, I was like, yeah, I am getting value out of this. I'm going to go and do that. Yeah. And so I think this sometimes is a bit of a hurdle of just putting yourself in that position, but
100%, it's not comfortable to do things that are unfamiliar, but the only way that we get comfortable with them is making them familiar, right? Is practicing them. And the thing with, I find referrals and reviews and that kind of thing is like the law of reciprocity here, right? Like you're doing something nice for them, like they had a great outcome or they have a great experience, like they want to do something nice for you, right? Like even listening to the podcast, you're probably like, yeah, I want to support you because you're asking for my support. And like, I love what you're doing. So let me support you.
I know. I love it. Now I totally don't mind asking for reviews. I'm like, hey, did you think this is great? Review this. This is amazing. I know now I kind of really got over that hurdle, but I think a lot of healthcare practitioners in particular can find it difficult to be like, that's my job is to be your caregiver, and asking for a review for that can be a hard transition sometimes. So but great to schedule it in and just get the practice of it and the repetition of it.
Yeah. And I think the last piece about this that actually operations kind of comes into is I find for me, and I talk to my clients about this a lot, is like when you start to standardize things and kind of have, I don't want to say rules for yourself, but you're like, okay, this is what I do on Mondays, or this is what I do here, is it kind of takes away a little bit of the like, ooh, maybe I just won't do it. Or like, it's kind of nerve wracking. So like, maybe I won't fit it into my schedule. But like, when you kind of have a standardization, you can take a little bit of the emotion out of it and just be like, okay, I'm now going to be like my own employee of the month, like best damn employee, and check this stuff off my list, right? Like you can become a little bit more like logical about it.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to be my own employee of the month. Sometimes when I don't know how to be a good mother and I'm like mothering my 3 children and I don't know what to do, I think, what would a good mother do?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
I do what a good mother would do. And I feel like that's kind of similar here. Like if you're
Totally.
floundering, just think, what would a good practice owner do? And then you can kind
Yeah.
of come up with ideas. I know, I think it's funny.
It's hilarious. And like, I'll often make jokes like about my boss, which is really me, and most people don't get it. But, you've got to wear a lot of hats when you're a business owner. You're the manager, you're the like owner with the big vision. But then, especially as practitioners, you're literally the practitioner, like doing everything. So I think the more you can kind of combine some of these things, then the easier it will make your life. But yeah, sometimes you also just have to like put on a different hat, pretend you're a different person, and get to
I'm gonna
work.
be good at this today.
Yeah.
I'm loving that for any practitioner that does their own admin and their own admin part of the practice. This is so valuable. And for any administrator that's listening or that's watching this, you are just going to become like a superstar at your job. Like
Yeah.
your business owner is going to be
Employee of the month.
exactly. So I love that this is so relevant for everybody.
Yeah. And actually, like, I do the behind the scenes of our practice. So I answer the phones, I do the billing, I do all that. And I do it kind of just within the flow of the rest of my business. And oh, so a lot of these tasks, like I do them, some of the follow-up, the referrals, the reviews. So your admin staff can totally do these things, especially if you go one step further. And now I'm giving you all my secrets, but like start adding templated emails into your Gmail that you can just pop in, customize, you send it off in like 2 seconds. You were saying like 30 minutes to an hour for follow-ups. Like honestly, if you get really good at all of this stuff, it'll take you like 15 minutes. Like it's so quick.
That's amazing. Were there any little magical tips we missed before?
I think that's it. I don't want to like overwhelm because honestly, like I would love for all of you to start doing some of these things, right? To get your schedule in place, to feel really good about it, and to start asking for reviews and referrals, start following up, like implement some of this stuff. So I don't want to give like too many things where you all just get overwhelmed, but also I think to know about operations is it's something that is continual, right? Like this is the day-to-day running of your practice. So you don't have to do all of this at once, right? Like you don't have to become a well-oiled machine overnight. I think it's really nice. I mean, sometimes I'll have clients who are like, no, my project for the next quarter is just streamline my system, streamline my operations. So they really go all in. But I think another way is just like when you're doing things for the first time, you kind of do it with a little bit more, strategy and systemization. And so then it's just little by little, you start adding it in. Like for instance, actually, we're bringing on our first associate. He starts next week. So yeah, although we're like busting at the seams to get out of here. So we need more associates, but anyway, that's a whole other story on expanding. But for him, I had never added an associate into Jane before, right? So I kind of created a standard operating procedure for myself for like, here's what we do when we add a new associate to our practice. And it's just a checklist. It's nothing exciting, but now I know when we add our next one or when we hire more admin staff, they can just go in and boom, 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 boom. So I think sometimes we think like, oh my God, I don't have time to do these operational things. I don't have time to set this up, but you do these types of things one time and there's basically like an instant return on your time investment. Like the next week you will get more done. So it's really powerful.
And even clinic owners that haven't done that and have set up this whole system without documenting, I always recommend that the next time you do it, like just do it the next time. Then the next time you hire a new office manager, have everything documented as part of the training process, because it can feel overwhelming to just try to document everything without a specific need in place. So doing it right at that time, so powerful.
Yeah, I think little by little, right? Baby steps are often a much more sustainable way to grow than just like, I'm going to try and do everything I see for my practice over the next 5 years in this 1 month.
Totally. And I think most people here probably use Jane. I think since this is a Jane user conference.
Let's hope so.
Well, there was definitely a portion of people that were still just considering or who didn't know all this content is relevant to everyone, no matter what software system they use. But for those that do use Jane, and I know you use Jane at your practice. So how do you do all of this using Jane's features?
Yeah, I mean, There's so many. Honestly, you've created such an incredible platform. I have to say, like, I've been teaching it and using it for years now, and I teach other ones as well. And Jane is like by far the most comprehensive. So anyone considering Jane, you definitely want to switch.
Okay. I'm like, oh my goodness, no. It's
Yeah. See, now I'm promoting you.
Yeah.
But a few features in Jane that can actually help you with some of the things we've talked about today. The first, I mean, they're all super simple, but the first is using actually the break feature. So, you know how you can put breaks in your schedule, but using that to block the other tasks that we talked about. So you're literally creating a break in Jane, and then you just put a note in that says, you know, social media content and write email to list. And then another one that says, you know, follow up and ask for referrals, right? So then at one glance, you can see, here's what I have to do today, here's what's on my list, and you're not like bopping between multiple schedules. So we have everything in our Jane, and I mean, that's so easy, it takes 2 seconds. The other one I think I was telling you about that I feel like not a lot of people use, actually there's two not a lot of people use, is the task feature. I don't know if you find a lot of people use the task feature, but
yeah, less than I would have imagined, for sure.
yeah.
So I'd love to hear how you use it.
Yeah, we use it for a lot of this stuff, and it's actually really great for like assigning things to admin staff. So for those of you who don't know, like when you maybe click on an appointment in your schedule and the profile comes up on the side, and there's the little note section, you'll see a little toggle, and you can actually toggle it and it will become a task where you can assign it to somebody and you can add a deadline. So what we do, here's our process, is Darcy, my husband, at the end of each appointment, he'll put a note in there of what that patient needs next. So maybe they need to follow up, or maybe they need a return visit reminder, or whatever. Maybe they had a great outcome, we're going to ask for a review. So he'll put it in there, toggle it to a task. He'll either assign it to himself or to me. And then he puts the deadline on the day he does those tasks. So he might put it in on his Monday for follow-up. And then you just go into the top right corner of Jane where it says your name, and you'll see a list of my tasks, and it will show all your tasks in one place. So then you're not like, oh, who did I say I was going to follow up with? Like, what did I say I was going to do? You just go to those tasks and you just see, follow up with this person, follow up with this person. And then the most satisfying thing is you get to check it off as complete.
Oh, such a, do you look through office supply catalogs like I did?
Am I exposing what a loser I am, what a nerd I am? But I love systems and organization because it honestly, it gives you so much more flexibility and freedom, I find. So yes, I nerd out over all this stuff. Back to school, shopping at Staples used to be like my favorite thing as a child.
The school supplies, not the clothes.
No, not even. But and then the last feature I think that we were also talking about that not a lot of people use that's so helpful is the return visit reminders. So you can access it from the same place. You just scroll all the way to the bottom of, and actually they're posting how you do all this, so I don't need to explain it, but it's down at the bottom of that little profile. But what it will allow you to do is send sort of a kind of like semi-automated or automated reminder to book their next visit. So we use it a lot if someone like said they're going to rebook, like we tell them, oh, you've got to rebook in 2 weeks and they just need to check their schedule. We'll schedule a return visit reminder to go out to them in a week or something to remind them. Or if someone doesn't need to come back for like 3 months, then they might forget, right? So you can schedule this little reminder to go out to them 2.5 months from now with the suggestion of when they should book. And then it's so easy. It will take them right into Jane. It's like, I love this feature actually. Yeah, we use it a lot. And actually, this is the type of thing that Darcy will assign to me as a task, saying, you know, you just say RR, so return visit reminder, 3 months or something like that. And then I go and schedule it on my days. So you can start to see how organized this can become, and it will take you way less time, but you're going to get more of the right things done, which is, I think, the key.
Yeah. And do you ever use the unscheduled patients report to find the patients that need the return visit reminders? I don't know.
Well, so we used to do that a lot, but now we're in the flow of just doing it ongoing. But I do love to use the unscheduled visits for like reinvigoration strategies. So, maybe a few times a year you go in and you're like, who dropped off? Who hasn't been in 3 to 6 months? And you can reach out to those people. So yeah, I love that one as well.
It's for I think admin staff, especially, who aren't going to have practitioners who are quite as helpful as Darcy.
Yeah, I've trained him.
Yeah, and who aren't quite so malleable on the way that they finish a visit. So it's nice to have an option where you can just look it up yourself independently and then go through and do that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you can start to like give your admin staff some of these little projects, right? Of like create a process for yourself so that every 3 to 6 months or whatever, we're touching base with people who haven't been in a while, or whatever you want your process to be, and have them do it. It's not hard. You just have to kind of decide like, what is my standard process going to be, my system, and then, put it in your schedule.
I love it. And I feel we were trying to keep this style to 45 because it's a lot of listening and talking. So we're right on time right now with all of that. And I would love for you to share if people have, you do this as a consulting business, but also there's other ways for people to hear from you or get in touch or kind of see what you do. Even how can they do that?
Yeah. So I'd say probably 2 best ways. One, if you want to just reach out, you've got questions or something afterwards, you can find me on Instagram at Matheson & Co. But if you also are just like, okay, I like what she is talking about, I really want to learn kind of more about building this sort of sustainable practice, self-sustaining machine, I've got a totally free masterclass that actually takes you behind the scenes of how we built our own practice. Oh, I see they just posted it in the chat. So you can go to that there if you're interested. It's totally free for you. And I think those are probably the 2 best ways for you to see what I do and for you to also go a bit deeper.
Okay, I love that. I think people have been asking questions as we went. Some people were putting up their hands and taking them down. So maybe I'll just leave a couple of minutes here to see if anybody had any questions that they wanted to ask. Oh, perfect.
Oh yeah, I see there's a Q&A thing.
And so just for people who are watching after the fact, if you want to just repeat the question that you're going to answer before you answer it, even if it's in chat. So I see one from Julie in the chat, that clients fill out the ratings and review, but don't always proceed to Google review. Yeah, suggestions on how to get clients to follow through and leave their review on Google. Yeah,
so we use that feature, but we also find that a lot of people don't. So we still like proactively ask. And actually, to be honest, we don't do that anymore just because we're busier than we can handle. But when we were first starting and wanting to grow, I was like, as you see, like fastidious about this, like really asking for the reviews. So don't be afraid to shoot people an email or ask in clinic, because I do find if it's automated, a lot of times people will opt out.
Right. Yeah.
Or actually something that we do with this is if someone writes a great comment in the review, but they don't post it to Google, I will email them and say, oh my God, thank you so much for this amazing comment. I even paste it right into the email. It was so kind. Like, would you be open to sharing that on Google? And then they do. So that's, I think, another way.
Next time you do that, Kate, also say, and why didn't you just share it right on Google? And then tell me, because I'm really, really curious to know.
People are lazy.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah. And I think people who aren't from small business don't really understand how valuable a Google review is to a business. So yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if there's something we can put in the language that would help more people make that move.
Yeah. So part of the language that I use and that you were even saying when you were talking about the podcast is like, be very honest with people, right? Like, we're working to grow our practice, or we really appreciate your support. It is super valuable for other people to learn from others' experiences versus me just saying like, it can help you, I promise. Like, we actually say that exact thing in our reviews so that you add that sort of personal connection with people. And I think that's sometimes what the automation kind of can lack, like not yours specifically, but just in general, is if people don't feel that connection to another person or business, it's much easier for them to kind of like opt out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I have real plans for that review feature because I would love for those internal reviews to be posted onto like your website directly, like other places that those reviews could be useful beyond just your own personal feedback.
Mhm.
But you could also turn them into like social tiles with just like the last name, like initials, or, there's lots of things you can do with the internal reviews beyond just Google.
Yeah, exactly. I see
Um,
there.
so psychotherapy, I know in psychotherapy, you're actually not allowed to ask for Google reviews or public
Yeah.
reviews. So that's one of the other reasons for the internal option only, is that some people can't ask for
Yeah.
Google. But Angela, you said here that retention isn't a thing yet, but I would argue as soon as you have a single client, retention is a thing.
Yeah.
Kate would
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Like I said, like when we were first opening and first getting started, I was watching like every single point because I'm not the practitioner and I don't have that control. I would be like, okay, you rebooked, great job, great job. And then I'd say, okay, they didn't rebook yet. Like what's going on? Like you want to track, you have the time, right? You're not seeing a lot of people if you're just starting. So you want to be tracking this stuff. And like I said, snowball one booking into 5 or 10 or however they legitimately need. So yeah, I would say it's important from the beginning, but I also know what you mean, right? That's why I was saying the marketing will you need to build a bit of momentum first. So I see Psychology Today is a really good one for psychotherapists, Google ads, radio ads. I think it looks like you're doing some good marketing. So there's two things. One, you want to make sure you're evaluating how is it working for me? So is the marketing actually working? Because a lot of times we're doing it, but it's not giving us a return. So if it's not giving you a return, then you need to tweak and test and fine tune or stop so that you're not wasting time or money on things that aren't actually working. But beyond these options, another one is start getting other people selling for you, right? So start networking, collaborating, doing joint collaborations or joint workshops, or even just joining your BNI or things like that. Like the more you get your name out there, the better. Which includes media, right? Like even me doing this tonight, like this is a form of marketing even for my own business. You all just getting to know me. So, joining podcasts or guest blogs, or again, local media features, right? Like that was hugely beneficial for us and it's totally free. So I think media is a really great one as well that you can add in. There's honestly so many.
I always feel like these suggestions can feel overwhelming, but
Totally.
until you start saying like, well, just put a break in your Jane schedule and then go do the things. And it
Yeah.
feels like suddenly more relaxing that there's time to kind of try these things.
Yeah. And I would suggest if you're not, you're still growing, that you have a business development block in your time, 1, 2, 3 hours a week, whatever you can afford, which might be taking a course or program or learning things or testing new ideas, right? You need to be doing things that will move you forward as well as run the day-to-day. So that's another little block that I usually like to have as well for playing around with some of this stuff.
I love it. Oh, I would just open the Q&A, but it's here in chat too. How much value do you think? Yeah, how much value do you think there is in sending letters to doctors after assessments? I mean, this is actually a really common strategy in healthcare as PT or allied health.
Yeah, so I mean, we suggest this as well. We did it as well. So there's a couple of things here. Let's say someone was referred by a doctor. You don't know if they were actually referred to you or if they just, said go to a PT in your area or whatever. But if we see that there's a family doctor, again, we don't do this as much now, but in the beginning, we would ask the patient, is it okay if we give your family doctor just a little update so they're in, on top of your care as well? We're all on the same page. They're always like, sure. So then, yeah, you just shoot them a message saying, we saw this patient. Thanks so much for sending them my way. Here's what we did. Here's the plan. So they know, they're like, wow, this person's in awesome hands. I'll keep sending them people.
Also, no doctor wants to treat lower back pain. So if you say they presented with lower back pain and this is what we're doing, the next time a lower back pain person walks into that doctor's office, they're gonna be like, oh, I know someone who treats lower back pain. Yeah. I know. I think it's hard. Doctor, like it used to be more about walking in, like going for lunch with a doctor. And I'm like, that just doesn't happen. Like everyone's too busy. That no one networks like that more. But
they're too busy to see their own patients, like they're not going to have a coffee break with you unless you are in similar networks with them, right? Like I think personal networking is also really amazing, where it's like you're doing in clubs or on like sports teams or whatever together, and you're connecting with these people personally, but they can end up being great professional referrals too. Now, like Ali said, we've given you a lot. So honestly, with marketing, I would suggest you choose like 1 to 3 things, maybe 1 to 4 if you're also considering networking, and stick with it for like 3 to 6 months. And then you can layer on or change things. But if you try and do like all 16 things we just talked about, you're going to spread yourself so thin. Yeah, none of it's going to end up working.
And also choose the ones that fit you. Are you a writer and you like writing? Then you can try content through blog. Do you love social time? Like try some of those more networky things. Like it's you can find the ones that really fit you. Yeah, I like that.
There's so many, and yeah, I could go on, but I don't want to.
Like joining an adult sports team is an interesting way of building your practice, but totally. I also think it's funny as a parent, when you start talking to other parents about what you do for work, it's like, oh, I should come see you. Like it's a really interest just being in group settings. So whatever settings exist in your world, start talking about what you do.
Totally. I usually tell people like start having more conversations. I think it's a really good indicator of how your business is going, is like if you're just having more conversations about what you do with whoever. So I love personal networking, like joining communities or mom groups or teams or yoga or whatever, because you get to do something fun for yourself, but you also can then connect with so many people, and you never know where these things are going to lead down the road.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay. I love that. I think that we're a few minutes to go and lots of questions answered there. So thanks, Kate. That was great. You did great for a 7 p.m. call. I felt energy. I felt passion.
Yeah, now I'm buzzing. I won't be able to come down actually, but all good. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, appreciate you spending some time with us. And again, I encourage everybody to follow Kate's Instagram and go reach out if you have any further questions. Really appreciate you sharing your experience with us.
You're most welcome. Thank you, everyone. I don't know how I hop off now.
Yeah, there's a little door at the bottom that says backstage.
There we go.